Hi, Charlene. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for your time today and welcome. Welcome to Substack and to sharing your story, really, with me and with the readers and the persons who will view this. Let me just do an introduction of Charlene for you. So, I met Charlene on the platform Quora. And Quora is a platform, for those of you that don't know, it's a platform where one can ask questions and they're answered on the platform. So both me and Quora, we answer both me and Charlene, sorry, we answer questions on Quora. And we're both of like minds, I would say. We share so much and have so much in common. And we've spoken on several occasions, me and Charlene, and we always have wonderful, exciting conversations because when you can speak openly to someone about the stuff that we've experienced, it's so thrilling and so dynamic. So I'm really looking forward to having an interesting conversation with Charlene. And we're going to look at a range of topics that covers spiritual and paranormal phenomena. So I'm going to kick off, Charlene, and ask you, where do we start? Let's look at where it all began for you.
Um, I suppose my journey really is in sort of two parts, as you know. So I suppose my sleep paralysis, that started when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And that was a totally different experience as well. So when I was a child, it was very light and very sort of bright and sort of colourful. But it still had the sort of basics of the paralysis and not being able to move. So that's where it started for me when I was about 5 or 6 and I was in bed. I believe I was napping or something. So I remember being bright outside, or maybe it was the summertime and I'd gone to bed early. I remember just lying down in bed and I remember seeing, and I hadn't gone to sleep. I remember not going to sleep. So, and that's kind of the same as all my other experiences. So just lying in bed and I would see lots of these sort of beautiful butterflies around, really vibrant, really colourful, that I wanted to play with them. And that's when I realized I couldn't move because I reached my hand out and I realized I wanted to reach my hand out and I realized that I couldn't. I was like, okay, I can't move any part of my body. This is really freaking me out. This is really scary. So I just called my mum and I kind of just screamed. I was like, Mom, come and get me. And she was looking at me like, this is kind of not like, what are you doing? Because I'd managed to open my eyes, but I couldn't sort of speak. I couldn't move. I can speak to her, but I couldn't move. That's all I knew. And I remember just saying, I can't move. So she kind of just nudged me. And then that was it. I was kind of out of it. And as time went on, it kind of changed to not being, my eyes would be closed, not being able to move and not being able to speak. But that was my first ever experience of it, was I was able to open my eyes, but I just wasn't able to move and I could speak. And it was really fun for me.
Okay, because that's what I was going to ask. Was it frightening, or what? How did the experience make you feel?
I think from my first experience, it was just that I couldn't move. And that really freaks me out because I'm used to being able to move as and when I want to. So
Okay.
I think that was it mostly. It was the not being able to move at all. That was a really weird experience.
Okay. So, and how often then, moving forward, how often did those experiences happen?
Okay, so after that experience, it didn't happen again until probably like preteen, I would say. So around about 11, 12, maybe 10. I'm not really sure on the ages, but I know that I wasn't in high school. So for me, I went to high school when I was, I think, about 12. We started in year 8, which is a little bit different to most of the other boroughs in London. I remember it was before high school and it was just a bit more scary, but it didn't last long. Um, and then when I got to my teenage years, it would last longer. And that's when the more sort of scary, sort of typical experiences that people have, that's when that kind of came into fruition. That was where I would feel different presences in the room with me. There was times I wasn't able to speak. Lots of those sort of different attributes came into play then.
Okay, so having had these experiences whilst you're sleeping, what's your perspective of sleep and the action of going to sleep? How do you view that?
Okay, for me, it's a bit different. I know that a lot of people have they have their own unique experience with it. For me, I'm not asleep, so I've always kind of had that trouble with where do I draw the line in terms of calling it sleep paralysis, because they don't really encounter the people that aren't falling asleep. I suppose because I've spent a lot of time doing the whole scientific sort of viewpoint of it, and it didn't really fit in at all. We'll come on to the other elements later. But for me, I would lay down, just like my normal routine, going to bed, getting washed, getting dressed, and then getting into bed and lying down. And then within, I'll say about 5 or 10 seconds, that's when it starts. So I'm nowhere near sort of drifting off into sleep or anything like that. I'm literally just getting comfortable in my bed and sort of like lying down. And then that's when it starts, and I would suddenly feel the vibrations of it coming on. And then I know, like, I've probably got like 2 or 3 seconds to jump up before it kind of catches me. It kind of feels like it's a wave, like it's coming in a wave, and the wave is gone. And if you don't get up quick enough, that next wave is just going to grab you and just hold you still. Most of the time, because you're kind of getting ready for bed, so you don't really have that energy that you would have to suddenly jump up and just like, okay, I don't want to be doing this. So for me, it just happens, and I'm lying in bed, obviously tired, but I haven't fallen asleep.
Okay, because the kind of the science behind it says that the experience is an hallucination,
Yeah.
and that it happens. There's the terms hypnagogic, hypnopomic, and so they're saying that it happens when you're falling asleep, that early stage of it goes on during your REM sleep, and it also happens when you're just waking up from sleep. So I guess you're saying that that's not the case with you, and that that explanation just doesn't fit, because they also say that we then hallucinate these images whilst we're sleeping, and that's the sleep paralysis experience, because the body is paralyzed, because the body shuts down whilst we sleep. And so they say that it's not a real experience. What's your views on that?
They probably haven't experienced it. I can understand that it's very hard to measure. I studied science a lot, and I studied this a lot as well when I was younger, because I really wanted to know what on earth was going on. You know, as a student of psychology for many years, I would understand it from a scientific perspective, but it just never fitted in. Because the first part is I was not asleep. I was not going through my first stages of sleep. I'd literally just lie down and put my head on the pillow, and then the vibration starts. So I know I'm not asleep. I'm very much aware of everything that's happening. And this will happen when I'm by myself or when I'm with other people. But I do understand that everyone has a different experiences of it. I think I've had one experience where it's happened when I've woken up, and it kind of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like that film Inception, that experience where you kind of feel, you know, that you haven't woken up fully, but it takes a while for you to recognize that you haven't woken up fully, because you feel that you can see everything in your room, for example. In this experience, it was everything I could see in my room, and it's like, okay, why are things happening slightly differently? Then I realized, okay, I'm not actually awake fully, and I need to jump out of it a little bit more, and then jump out of it again. But that's the only time I've ever had that particular experience in terms of it happening at the end. But even then, that was an experience where, I'm sure we'll move on to that later, where there was a lower vibration in my room, and that was experienced by somebody else because they moved something around that someone else had seen as well. So I'm very much aware that there's there's different experiences, but there's things that can be seen and not seen, and people have actually experienced that from my perspective before. So when it comes to the scientific sort of cause of it all, the reasons that they have, a lot of it doesn't fit. I can understand the reason why they're trying to make it fit and trying to get that level of understanding, but I just feel they don't go into it deep enough, and I just don't feel like they want to either. They kind of have their set way of like, this is what it is, and we don't need to sort of open that up or explore it any further than that. This is enough, which is a shame.
It is very much a shame, and I think that's why I'm kind of on this journey, and I'm doing the research and doing the work that I'm doing to kind of bring this up to the surface a lot more, and for people to kind of consider other alternatives, and that, hey, you know what, it could be there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to follow what the doctors or the medical community or what the books are saying in that respect, that
Yeah.
there are other alternative perspectives here, you know. Did you ever visit a doctor and seek any medication, or was it not that extreme?
Mm. It was extreme, but I think for me, I don't really tend to go to the doctors generally. So, yeah, I wouldn't, that's not something I would go to the doctors. I mean, I've had extreme tonsillitis before and I've still not gone to the doctors until the last minute. So I'm not best in that sense, but I did do a lot of research. I am someone that will do my own research and sort of really sort of delve into that further and ask people as well, and open it up in different areas. But I didn't go to doctors, no. And that's because I guess I would eventually go to sleep. It was an annoyance, yes. It really frustrated me, especially the times where I'm studying and I need to get those hours of sleep in and I can't go to sleep. And I think for me, I would read the sort of scientific books and be like, okay, you need to have a good sleep hygiene and have some chamomile tea and go in the bath and relax and all of that, all of those sort of things. I did all those. I checked it off and it still happened, you know? So I just kind of just had to just live with it. That was it, really.
Okay. Let's talk then about the sleep paralysis, and let's start the conversation about, because you've touched on energies and vibrations and entities and things like that. Let's look at the sleep paralysis experience. What was that like for you?
In what sense? Which part?
Okay, so let's see. You go to sleep. Yes, normally, and at some point during that sleep stage, you'll feel those waves, those vibrations, and then what next?
Okay. So after I felt the vibrations, you obviously get that. I know because I've experienced it before that I know what's going to come and happen. And for me, it's like, oh, not again. I can't, I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. Something is just going to bug me. What happens is if I'm lying there, once that wave sort of catches me, it kind of feels like something. I don't want to say it's something anymore, because when I was younger, that's what it felt like. It kind of felt like something just grab a hold of you. But that's my only way of expressing it in order to communicate it to somebody else. It kind of feels like someone just grabs you and just jolts, and that's it. And you can't move, you're just trapped. But it is a trapped feeling because it's not something that you've initiated yourself. So when that wave sort of comes on, I kind of hear this sort of ringing in my ear, and I kind of feel a vibration as well. So it's sort of like a noise level and also feeling as well. And then I'm suddenly paralyzed and I can't move any part of my body, and that's it. And I'm aware of everything that's happening. Because this part of the experience is so long ago, I'm not sure if my eyes were open or closed. I like to think my eyes were closed. yeah, I'm gonna go with my eyes were closed, and it's just a sense of urgency coming over me. And I suppose a lot of that was just fear induced, because I'm aware that I can't move. And if I can't move, my level of thinking is, if I can't move, then I can't prevent anything from happening to me. And my mind did wander to all sorts of crazy things, like someone is suddenly going to break into my house and it's going to hurt me. And I live by myself. So that's what I would think. I wouldn't be protected. I wouldn't be able to look after myself. And then after that initial sort of fear sets in, that you can't move and you can't do anything about it, it's a case of you kind of just sit there like, okay, so what happens next? And you're just like, and then suddenly this energy around, it just feels heavy and it just feels dark. And then there are multiple times where I have sensed someone or something really is in the room with me. And then that's when it really gets too much. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need to move. I need to do something. I have before sensed that something's coming from the far end of the room in the corner and just slowly coming closer and closer and closer to me. There's times where it's just been opposite and not as close, and they're coming close to me. There's times where it can just appear right in front of me, or it can feel like it's just over me. And it's like, you want to move so badly, and you want to just say like, just go, or just leave me alone, but you can't really do or say anything. And it's really the most petrifying thing ever. There is no way to describe it. It's petrifying and it's scary. It's really, really, really scary. And yeah, there's just not much you could do. The only thing I can do was focus on moving. And I learned from young, which is really quite good, and I think possibly may have read it as well. But I also learned from young is to try and focus on one area of my body to move. It would be too heavy for me to try and just say, get up and just move, because that was, obviously I did try that, but that would never work. So I would focus on my little finger, and I would just focus on it. It's like, just move, just move, just move. And you just really have to narrow in on that concentration. And eventually your one finger moves, and then you're like, that's it. And then once one finger moves, you're able to move your hand. And once you're able to move your hand, you move your arm. And then suddenly within like split seconds, you can move your whole body and just jump up and go. There's times where I've moved my finger, and if I'm not quick enough to jump out of it, then I kind of go back in again. I'm like, you have to start the process all over again. I remember speaking to someone in college as well, and I was so amazed that he said he'd experienced this as well. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. In all my years, everyone has said no. And I asked him what he did, and he said to me that he would say the Lord's Prayer. So I was like, okay, fantastic. I'll try it, because at all these points, I will try absolutely anything. And I am religious as well. So I would say the Lord's Prayer. And when I said the Lord's Prayer, it just went. It was amazing. So next night, the next time that it would happen, I would say Lord's Prayer and it would go again. I think this happened about 4 times. Not as much as I would like, unfortunately. And then say the 5th time it happened and I said the Lord's Prayer, I suddenly felt that over my mouth. And I was like, what the hell? That can't happen. I finally found something that works. And now it's found a way to overpower that and stop me. And I couldn't speak. I couldn't move my mouth. I was shocked, flabbergasted, and also, again, really scared, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like if this can happen and I suddenly can't speak, what else can happen? So then I just avoided the situation as much as I could. I would put the light on, I would put music on, I would go into the living room and watch TV and fall asleep there or something. I would change rooms or, sort of things like that. I did find that it would happen when I was away on holiday as well. So I was like, okay, so it's not just based in my house, or if I'm sleeping at someone else's house, it would happen then as well. And interestingly enough, when I ask people what happens when I'm in this sort of state, and I do prep them for it. So my friends and my partners are fully aware that, there will be times where I'll be mumbling in my sleep, but I'm not mumbling. I'm petrified and I'm scared and I need some help. it's an emergency situation, I explained to them. I mean, they understand everything. They don't truly understand it because they've not experienced it, but they don't sort of wash away the idea of what I'm saying. And not like, okay, you're crazy or anything like that. It's like, okay, that's a bit wild, but I've heard of something like this before, perhaps, or okay, you know, they just kind of take it on the chin. But I do express them, like, if you ever hear me mumbling or something, please just push me. And most of the time, which is really annoying, they forget and they push me out of just sheer annoyance, not because they've remembered, but they were just like, oh, okay, you're annoying me, you're making some weird noises. So I pushed you to stop, kind of like if I was annoying them with snoring or something. And it's just so weird because in my head, I'm screaming at them. That's what I hear. I'm screaming, saying, help, help, move me. What are you doing? Push me, help me. And all they can hear is, just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, those are my earlier experiences of it all. It's horrible. Honestly, it was really horrible.
So, what do you think now? I mean, you've had more experiences and different types of experiences as time has passed, and we're going to touch on that a bit later on. But given the experience that you have now, what do you believe is happening during those experiences, those early experiences you had?
Like I said, I still am a student of psychology. That is what I do in my field. So I've always kind of gone down the scientific route of everything. I spent many years following that one particular route of it just being a part of your sleep and your sleep cycles and stuff like that. But even though it didn't really necessarily fit in, like it didn't, there was boxes that were left unchecked that couldn't be answered from the scientific community. Like the experience, like I said, where something covering my mouth or having that feeling of a presence in the room, those things cannot be necessarily explained. They will say hallucination, but I'm not hallucinating that someone is in the corner of my room coming closer to me, or that someone's going to put their hand over my mouth. Those will not be my sort of hallucinations in that sense. So it never really fit. Now I would say that it's more of once I did everything the sort of the scientific sort of route, it didn't stop. As soon as I moved on to a spiritual reason for it, everything stopped. It changed entirely, totally changed. So my reasons for sleep paralysis, which I don't call sleep paralysis anymore, I call it soul travel, is more of a spiritual reason.
Okay, so expand on that, the spiritual reason for us.
Okay. For me, I had a spiritual awakening for one, so that definitely helped. That helped me in terms of releasing my fear. So I realized that once I let go of my fear of everything, because I suppose when I had more of an awakening, I was much more open to sort of like the unseen presence around. I kind of always been that way inclined anyway. Like I've gone to psychics before and things they've said has come true, and I've always kind of followed in that sort of path. I believe in God, I believe in angels and spirit guides and ancestors, which I've always done. But I've never really taken it further when I was younger. That belief and that knowledge has always been there, but not sort of explored it. And that's what I was doing this time around. So I was much more open to their presence around me. And I let go, and because I knew that they were around me and I can feel them around me, I was much more open to just things that are unseen, you know. So I suppose with that, I knew that I was protected, I knew that I was loved, and I would sort of feel those sort of feelings. So the closer I got to that, which I suppose is kind of saying to people that are religious and, you know, and they pray and they feel close to God or whichever angelic sort of being, when they feel close to that, it's kind of like the same thing. And once you get close to that, you know that you're loved and you're protected. It was, yeah, the closer I got to that, I got to see more of the good as well as the bad. So I'm very much aware of the bad side, the lower vibrations, in the sense of the presence that I felt when I was younger. those sort of presence. But once I opened up a lot more to the good vibrations, I felt a lot more safer and I felt more protected. And that's been shown so many times through my journeys, because even on my journeys, I still come into encounter with lower vibrations, but I'm much more protected and I know how to protect myself now against them. Whereas before, because I hadn't really looked into that, I didn't know what I was doing. So now I know what I'm doing with it. When I do encounter low vibrations, I bring in the good vibrations in that sense to counteract it and balance it out. And it's just the same in the natural world. I mean, you can walk around and meet some bad people, but you're also going to meet good people.
Great.
So that's where the changes came in. It was letting go of that fear and being open to the good as well as the bad.
So when you say low vibrations, what specifically do you mean? I mean, I have an understanding of that, but when you say low vibrations, what is that?
Okay, so lower vibrations, they can have different names. I suppose entities is another word for it. It's just sort of souls that kind of just decided to stay here, or they're trapped, or they just don't want to move on. But they're kind of just a little bit of a menace in that sense. They're not here to do anything good, or, you know, they're just here to be annoying, or perhaps even you can get energy vamps as well, another word for them, where they would just feed off your energy. And a lot of it will be fear-based because it's a quick and easy energy to get. I think fear and sexual energy are quite easy and very quick to get that sort of energetic vibration from.
You think they're
I'm
human?
trying to get that from people. So that's how I see them. Do I think?
They're humanoid energies. Humanoid energies. Humanoid energies?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I couldn't give a definitive answer to that, I don't think. I've never really thought about it at depth or asked for a better understanding from my guides or anything like that. I just kind of just assumed that it's, for me, I would just see them as like, yeah, past spirits.
Okay.
That have either gotten stuck or just decided not to move on.
Okay, all right then. Well, thank you very much for that. I think let's take a break here, and then we can pick up again and continue the discussion. I'd like to talk about astral projection and your guides and the other kind of entities and beings that you relate with, interact with when you sleep. So we'll pick that up again in a moment. Thank you.